South fans, of course, we kicked off our NPL Victoria 2023 season against Moreland City last Thursday with a 2-1 come-from-behind victory. I felt it was a relatively comprehensive performance from South Melbourne. I did mention in a video-based tweet after the match that, we weren't super fluent. I think everybody would agree, but when you break down, the amount of, great chances that South Melbourne created, it was a performance in a way where, irrespective of our somewhat lack of fluency, we just kept fighting, grinding out chance after chance after chance, and ultimately really overpowered, I think, Moreland City, who, whilst certainly brave, and to be honest, especially after the first half, I thought, it's been a great performance from them. But again, when I analysed the amount of golden chances that South Melbourne spurned, and then when I really thought about how many chances that were great that Moreland City created, I felt that there was still a golfing class. And that's keeping in mind, whilst unaware who was missing from Moreland City, certainly South Melbourne, having players like Marcus Schrone, unavailable, new signing, Nathaniel Hancock, unavailable, new signing, Jack Painter-Andrews, unavailable, Marko Jankovic, who's serving a 2-match suspension because of his red card in the grand final last year. Even Morgan Evans, that's 5 players who potentially can play in the starting lineup. Certainly, arguably 3 or 4 of them could be first 11 players, depending on how they're performing. Really South Melbourne, I think, whilst it wasn't a full stamp of authority, especially on the scoreboard in this match, as I said, when you dig a little bit deeper, when you see who was out, when you analyse the amount of great chances created in the game, I think you can conclude that it was actually quite a reasonable start to South Melbourne's season. Let's just, off the top of my head, Riak missed an open goal. He also, that was in the second half. I remember him about 2 or 3 times rising above the defence, probably from 5 or 10 yards out, and whilst having a clean header, being unable to make clear contact. If he can make that, a little bit. If he can take that element of his game and make it a little bit more decisive and emphatic, just from headers, he probably could have had 1 or 2 goals in the game against Moreland City, because he just was able to out-jump the opposition in such dangerous positions multiple times. We had Webb miss a one-on-one. Okay, it was a good save by Condolian, although I did expect Alan Webb to score. Fair enough. He then made amends in the second half with a great touch and goal off a Riak header. We had, from memory, 2 shots cleared off the line. We had a crossbar very early on from Liram Almazi, and then we also had a big gaff from the Moreland City keeper, which unfortunately, even though Wallen was able to, realise that the keeper had made an error, assuming there was a free kick, he was unable to effectively score into an open net. And just on Josh Wallen, may I add that when he came on into the second half, I really felt he made a big difference. I felt that Ben Gibber, for 80 minutes that he was on the field, was outstanding. Keep in mind, Ben Gibber in the semi-final had his leg horrifically broken by a Green Gully player who, for some reason, the referee, didn't even card. And he managed to get back for round 1 of the NPL Victoria 2023 season. What's that, like a five-month turnaround? And really, he pushed man of the match against Moreland City. He really was effective, especially early on when South was, in the first half, even less, fluent than the second half. Obviously the second half was it was a more dominant performance from South. But Ben Gibber was great all game, and, deserves full credit. I felt of the debutants, Riak was the only thing missing from his game was maybe a hat-trick, because he had a lot of chances. But, we saw he got an assist for Alan Webb. He probably should have had an assist, a technical assist, with Josh Wallen missing that open goal after Condolian, assume there was a free kick. Just trying to think. I think it was that phase of play. He was everywhere. His work rate was amazing. Obviously, his vertical leap is sensational. He's quick. He can play in behind the fences. I think, he's definitely timing his jumps correctly to score headed goals. Just has to make sure he makes good contact. He can create chances for himself. We haven't really had a striker who can do that. We saw, late in the game last week where he took a player on the edge of the box, had a shot. saved by Condolian sharply to his right. And I think that was the scenario which, as mentioned previously, led to like the confusion with Josh Wallen, where Wallen eventually should have tapped home. He had a shot from outside the box where he just lashed like, a half volley, again, just wide. Very, very exciting player. Very exciting player. And even there were times when we played the ball into him, and similar to Harrison Sawyer, he was able to control it and lay it off. As I said, this player is, for me, and I tweeted about this, like having a superhero in your front third. Like if you can keep up or just gradually keep on improving his game with his base game, say at Moreland City, he is like having a superhero. If he can score, he can basically do anything. Which is frightening for defences. And even if he's not scoring, I don't think there's many players in the NPL Victoria or in Australian football who can deal with that sort of player, who's quick, has a ridiculous vertical leap, great feet. Obviously his technical ability is great. He can play 1-2s. He can close down. So very interesting player to watch. The other debutant, as mentioned, I didn't mention that he was a debutant, but there were two, was Danny Kim. Now, I felt Danny Kim, he didn't play anywhere near his best game. He probably would be disappointed with his debut, but I will say this, it's a bit of a technical analysis, but with Marko Jankovic missing, obviously Marshall and Almazi did quite well, especially limiting, the golden chances for Moreland City. Aside from their freaky goal, they may have had a couple of half chances, but can't really remember too many golden chances. What those players, and especially Marshall, they're not comfortable playing, for example, to feet like Marko Jankovic is, into dangerous areas, like, for example, the midfield. I think Marko Jankovic is very good with that. He likes to keep the ball on the deck. Obviously, he can play the long cross-field ball as well. Jake Marshall, if you watch his game closely, he's a no-nonsense defender, takes no risks. He'll never play those balls. So it's left to Liram Almazi to play those. I think he can, but Almazi's better, for example, at driving the ball out, dribbling the ball out. He's probably not as adept as Marko Jankovic at playing or disguising balls into the midfield. And when you have a player like Danny Kim, you really need to get him onto the ball with short balls, in my opinion, to his feet, into the middle of the park. So until we can do that, I think we need to do that. We need to build his confidence by giving him regular supply. He also obviously has to achieve a good level to contribute to the game when he gets those balls. But I wouldn't necessarily say, it was all his fault. There was a combination of a few things. A debut in front of a big crowd. I think some lineup issues out of our control, which meant we couldn't necessarily play to his strengths. Probably his confidence wasn't at the highest level either. But when he gets going, I'm confident that he's going to be a great player for South. We now turn our attention to Green Gully. Very, very difficult game this Friday, Green Gully Reserve. We know Green Gully are a team that, will have a budget of, say, a top 4 team that will be aiming for top 4. They made the semi-finals last year. Obviously, South Melbourne knocked them out. It's not an easy place to play at Green Gully. So if we can get as many South fans as possible to the game, support the boys. Hopefully we'll see back into the squad players like Marcus Schrein. He did say, I was in the crowd and I spoke to him briefly. He said next week he should be right, so he should be available. Maybe Painter Andrews will be available. Not sure where we will deploy him though, given how well Ben Jibber played at right back, although Painter Andrews can also play right wing. He does have, really, really good attacking characteristics. So those two players probably will definitely come in. We know Jankovic will miss again. My understanding is Hancock. I saw that I think he had like a foot cast, so I think he may have broken a toe in pre-season. I believe it was actually against Campbelltown from South Australia, so he might still be 3 or 4 weeks away. Evans, I'm not sure how far away he is, but certainly I think Sharon and Painter Andrews will be back into the squad, and that just further strengthens South Melbourne. It puts pressure on the players who are starting. Knowing that there's, top players, top and hungry players on the bench really wanting to break into that 11. Hopefully we can continue, with a strong performance and a positive result. 3 points would be amazing. A point would be sufficient away at Gully. But certainly, South Melbourne fans can influence, I think, the result by showing up in numbers. I said in a tweet that, if we can get 250 fans or so there, that's probably enough to be the dominant portion of the crowd. So yeah, let's get down there, South fans. Let's support the boys. Let's start off the season, on as in a positive as a manner as possible, because we know that if we do that, the following week against the Melbourne Knights on Monday is shaping up to be, potentially the best Melbourne derby in a very, very, very long time in terms of competitiveness. Hopefully the interest from the Melbourne Knights fans. And yeah, if both teams can go in with 2 positive results, that's only going to add more fire and more interest to the encounter. So let's get behind the boys. Let's go to Green Gully and let's see if we can secure another 3 points. Go South!